My name, as introduced, is Gabriel Cleveland. I am the executive director of Cabin Carey Press, which was founded right here in Fort Lee, about a mile away. Just officially celebrated our 25th anniversary last month. We produce absolutely gorgeous books of poetry and occasionally prose, memoir and essay collections. We've released 130 books as of next month, when our November title rounds out our 2024 catalog. And each and every one of them is, I like to say, an act of generosity from our authors to you, the reader. It's our authors saying, here is my heart, I'm going to share it with you. So it's in that spirit that we are delighted to introduce you to these two readers today. So I'm gonna read their bios, and then I'm gonna get out of the way, let them do their thing. Because there's nothing that speaks like the authors themselves. But it is really a treat to have both of you here. So who am I speaking of? Why, I'm speaking of Rachelle M. Parker, who's the author of the forthcoming Together We Remember the Gazelle, poetry winner of the 2022 Digging Press Chapbook Series, and also selected winner of the Furious Flower Poetry Prize in 2019, and third place at the Allen Ginsberg Poetry Awards. She is a resident of Story Knife Writers Retreat and Virginia Center for the Creative Arts. Her photography debuted in Orion magazine, and her poems have appeared in Rhino, Patterson Literary Review, and the anthology Breakbeat Poets Volume 2, Black Girl Magic. She has read for us as part of our manuscript selection process in years past. We're so grateful to have her as part of the extended Cabin Carey family. And I don't know if you know this, this is going to seamlessly transition into the other intro. But in 2022, during our manuscript selection period, Rachelle was one of the readers that assessed The Curve of Things, which is the debut collection from Kathy Kremins, our Cabin Carey featured writer for the day. Kathy Kremins is a retired New Jersey public school teacher with a BA from the College of St. Elizabeth, an MFA from Goddard College, and a D.Lit from Drew University. She has two chapbooks of poems, Seamus and His Smalls, which was released by Two Key Customs in 2023, and Undressing the World from Finishing Line Press in 2022. She is also the author of An Ethics of Reading, The Broken Beauties of Toni Morrison, Nawal El-Saadawi, and Arundhati Roy from Lambert Academic Publishing 2010. And she is an editor for New Jersey Audubon magazine and a member of the Feminist Poetry Collective, Right On, Poetry Babes. So, with that in mind, we're going to have 15 minutes from Rachelle Parker to kick us off, and then we'll pass the torch to Kathy. So, as promised, I'm going to get out of the way now, and I hope you enjoy it. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here. Thank you for that, Gabe. That wonderful introduction. I'm happy to be reading with Cassie. It's our first time together. And I'm glad to be a friend to Cabin Carey Press. So today I'm going to read a couple of poems from my, I forget this, y'all, because I think I speak loud enough. A couple of poems from Together We Remember the Gazelle, and a couple of poems, or maybe one from my new manuscript that I'm working on. And then, yeah, I think it's going to be two. So thank you again for being here. I'm going to start with Again and Again and Again. I will keep being born until the burdens of your matrimony are known. Walking down an aisle dressed in peach, never to know a cap and gown. Of the children birth, girl after girl, after girl after girl. I will wear the red, white, and blue dress you sewed for Easter, for church, for cheap. You remember me as tend my bonnet. Gloved hands will tie the string under my chin. We will dance in the fields grandma picked, become sisters sharing a room, never to speak of leaving teeth behind, nor your watered eyes. I worry about a Tatiana Jefferson's nephew. Because who's going to teach him the things his mama can't get to? Who going to take him over the Brooklyn Bridge the way I did my niece when she was teeny weeny, the Hudson River filling her nose in a stroller, on her bike with training wheels, then in shoes I thought too high for walking? Who going to show him a dish the way my Aunt Mary showed me, sweating onions in her olive green Dutch oven, the pieces of chicken thighs, the tomatoes canned, the tomato paste. Chicken cacciatore, she said, when I had only known fried and boiled with dumplings on Sundays. She worried that I would get the bay leaf out. She worried over and over about how it could slit your windpipe if you swallowed it. Who gonna show him how not to kill his own self, how to stay alive and well, build a home, appreciate lace curtains, china in a hutch, gold-plated flatware? Who gonna make him know a good woman? Who gonna pass down a good cast iron pot? And just one more from the collection. Dancing on beat. Having rhythm is the only way to remember where home is. The pounding of wildebeest, the clacking of calabash for a stew cooked in a cauldron on open flame. Without the beat of my mother's land, I would forget. I would wither and lay piles high and a heap of skin, bones bent under the weight of what I've come to do. Calves stretched and knotted with grief and sorrow. The rumble of the coast lit by red gold calls in the twilight of morn. The tight-skinned djembe responds. A wave of thumps taps my shoulders and my toes. Moving in the mists of Angola seeds, leaves between my teeth, I am in a hole, ready to sprout again. So I generally am writing about family, aunts and cousins and grandmothers, and I want to read my cousins, about my cousins. This is from the new manuscript. That apparently, I don't know my pages on. I think I gotta go back. Oh, Dutch ones is in there too. Okay. Well, I'll probably give you 3 from this one. Then we'll be 3 out. So the Dutch ovens. Aunt Mary sweated onions in her olive green Dutch oven. She folded steamed rice into ground meat and rolled it in her palms. She dropped these porcupines into the scented oil until browned and crusty. She put them to roast in tomato sauce and tomato paste until done, no longer pink in the middle. She plucked the bay leaf out when they were. I think I am ready for my sky blue Dutch oven and bay leaf. I got the neck bones and white potatoes and cabbage that Ma had wanted. Her list short, her directions concise. Place the meat in the pan, salt, peel the potatoes, slice the onions, add to the pot, cover, boil, simmer. Don't be too quick to check if done, she said. You'll know the right time. My niece wants my Dutch oven. It's too soon. There's more to steep, more to iron, to be heated, more recipes and ideas to try, more life. I'll get her on a small black lodge, maybe a quart size. She can start with a pot of beans or a peach cobbler. Either one, I'll be behind her when she's ready with the bay leaf. Cousins. Cousins bob for empires. Y'all, I don't know nothing about technology. I was trying to be fancy. My niece encouraged me. She said, "You'll be fine. Just read off your phone." And I was like, "I'm not going to be fine." Now, you guys are my witness. You'll tell her, don't let her do it again. Be strong. Cousins. Bob for empires in a galvanized tub. Cousins rip gifts open under grandma's Christmas tree. Cousins be the only ones at your birthday till 4, 5, 6 years old. Cousins get their hair washed by one mama, pressed by the other mama. Cousins share a small fry and a small orange soda and a cheeseburger. Cousins keep each other company when making a boo-boo. Cousins, no matter the house, there was cod liver oil. Cousins reach for your mama when they get scared. Cousins all scream, "Ew," when Pop-Pops cooks his possum. Cousins bring their box of fat chalk to draw a hopscotch. Cousins always call you by your house name, all the time. Cousins, it's a wonder mamas know who belong to her. Cousins been riding with you since before you got your driver's license. Cousins go off to college and drag you with them. Cousins are automatic bridesmaids and flower girls. Cousins, mamas say they only tell you secrets for your own good. Cousins be having that pool party at their condo. Cousins will start a book club up in a heartbeat. Cousins take their kids to Disney together, cruise together. Cousins, cousins, and more cousins. Cousins mean lots more to you when they mama and your mama, them sisters, both get the cancer and all you got is all them times y'all share stuff. And now you share salt from tears stored in a mason jar, and you wished you learned to punch down dough for a batch of yeast rolls, and handle a meat grinder to mince clams for fritters, and nimble your fingers to sew plaid dresses and shorts for Easter, heft an axe to bust logs for the potbelly stove, and wring a chicken's neck, and get your book learning, and become a scientist, and share a cure for sickled cells. So I want to say thank you again, Carrie, for including me as a friend, and for having me here at Fort Lee Library. And I'm always thinking about things, and so got a lot of things to get off my chest and try to figure out. So this is a new poem, 11 questions, and if you got some answers, just let me know. Say I'm a witness. What doorway will you look out at the moon? What day of the week will become your favorite? Sunday? Will there be champagne? How about buckwheat pancakes covered in molasses? Will the table you set hold your grandmother's dishes she got from her grandmother, who got them from Miss Brigham, who got them from her grandmother? What will you plant? What will you plant today? What will you plant today so that you know where to look for the things you planted today? Will it be something to make you know where to look for your name on the wall? What will you plant today so that you know what wall to look for your name? Will you come back black or white? Will you be in black or white? Will you be shadow or sun, Negro or colored? Will you color in the lines are out? Will you see the light? Shed some light? Will you walk the bass line? Do you know there's a piano with no black keys, just white? Is that good? Like sugar or flour or salt? Do you know someone who's loved you since 10? Do you know marrying them is better? What do you remember from 10 years old? Do you remember being at grandma's? Do you remember grandma's bake cakes and pies, never cookies? Do you remember being a grandma? Will you ask, how are you in all this? What weapon will you choose? Will you opt for a hatchet or machete or wings? Do wings have a collar to pop? Do they self-clean? Do they need adjusted as your weight, your height fluctuates? Will you start out as a sapling or a snag? Will you have to be everything in between? Will you know to look for your name on the wall? Will it be in graffiti, etched in granite? Will bones need replacing? Teeth? Knees? What will the turmeric and ginger on your counter save you from? Will you finally sow the last tobacco row in the last tobacco field, in the last tobacco state, the day you ease into your boss's office to let him know folks got you confused? Do you make an extra intricate pavlova to take to work so folks know you ain't nothing to be played with? Is you one of them folks with a blade between your teeth? Will you have eaten enough mackerels, enough grits, buttered and salted? Will you live near the edge of the woods so you go for a walk one day and the wolves get you? Will you get enough ice cream for your mama during hospice? Will you give her the rum and coke that she would rather have? Or will you take up drinking them in her name? Will you be born with a blade between your teeth? Will you birth a baby with a blade between its teeth? Will your baby be blade? Will it be lyrical, an observationist, a lyrical observationist? Do you know there is a difference between being brave and courageous, between being nice and kind, between being paid for your inventory and receiving a piece of land so that you can start out even? Will the courts cut those parts out? Do you know the feeling of having your land stolen? Do you know the feeling of being stolen? Do you know the feeling of having your land stolen and given as a gift? How about being stolen and given as a gift? Are these gifts really guardians, angels? Will they walk the baseline? What passages will the set of encyclopedias in your den have cut out that you don't like? Will you sit with the kids and wife enjoying a roast for dinner? Will you send the kids to their rooms? Will your friends visit for a spell? Will you use the word, the hard R? Will you hear your kids use the word, the hard R? Is there a rope in the front closet, the garage? Will you use it on a boy to show him his place? Will you be a boy running and hiding in your grandmama's shed? Will you cower because you took to whistling? Will there be dogs outside the door pulling and bearing teeth? Will the blades of grass be wet with dew? Has the overseer in you come out for a night on the full moon? Have you been oversawed, found out? Is it past the point to lotion hands, redden at the knuckles and chapped? Will the roast keep for a day or two? Are you able to get the blood off the dungarees? Is your wife capable? Or will she get Berta to soak them in warm water with salt, like she learned from her grandma, who kept the Brigham's flax trousers unstained from the red on old Master's shoes, from Jenny's little girl, the one just ready for breathing? How about how much blood you gonna have to manage to keep the sheets white? The missus with a straight line smile, this whole arse way of life, profiting and manufacturing. Damn it, will you know where to look for your name? Will you know to look for the wall with all our names? Did your grandpappy have 2 helpings of the roast before it was done? Will you ever hear your kids say the hard R? How many babies, mamas, will you have? How many mamas, babies will you kill? Did you dream of becoming an overseer one day, receiving your duster and dagger and instructions? Do you know you've been gaslighted, manipulated, tricked? How will you define success for your own self? Will you walk the baseline? Do you hear it? Do you feel it? Do you know that no matter how much you get out of this life, you're gonna pass with something on your heart? How many times you gonna be born before you realize it's the sword and shield, that you gotta lay them down? How many times before you stop putting weapons in other people's hands? Come on, don't you know the difference between hatchet, machete, wings? How many times do you realize you are 3, 4, 5 times more intelligent than that work cube you've been assigned to? The moon? What about the moon? Is it full? Your belly, is it full? Do you know that the vamps of your feet are tended with red gold? What you figuring? They baseline? They conductors conducting? Do you think it's just evolution? Is that what global warming is all about? Like the ice age? Thank you, everyone. I'm so happy to be reading with you, Kathy. You make doing this poetry thing look easy.
Thank you so much.
Rachelle gets me all the time. Just quickly to make that link, Rachelle and I have been friends for a number of years now, and during the pandemic, she was one of the people that I saw regularly, and so many of the poems that are in the curve of things were shared with Rachelle for the first time, and doing a lot of open mics together, and that last poem was the first time that I heard it. So I'm still, as I do with Rachelle's poems, on first hearing. And thanks for reading Cousins, because you know I love that. So thank you. When Dimitri, who's communications director at Cabin Carry Press, said, asked about doing this, and who would you like? And I'm like, well, Rachelle, of course. It's got to be Rachelle. So thank you for saying yes. And I do need to say a few things about Cabin Carry Press. I retired from teaching at New Jersey public schools after 33 years, and then I taught in college for another 5. And I retired to write full time. And Cabin Carry Press has been I've been reading books that they've published probably for about 18 of the 25 years they've been in existence, and the product is always absolutely gorgeous. Never really thinking that I would be able to someday have that, and I'm so grateful for the process. One of the things that I loved about being an educator was learning from my students, and I had 2 chapbooks out. But the process of a full collection was totally eye-opening, and I learned so much. And I'm so grateful to Gabe in particular. We spent a lot of time having conversations back and forth about so many things, and the physical beauty of this book is pretty astonishing, I have to say. The cover is from a painting called Rewind by a friend, Sarah Klein. But part of the reason that it looks this way are these amazing conversations that I had pretty frequently with Gabe. And while the poems are mine, a lot of the vision of this book is because of Gabe and all that he gave throughout the entire process. So I'm grateful to Carey Press. I'm celebrate their 25 years, and hopefully there'll be 25 more. And I'm very excited that Gabe Cleveland is their new executive director, and all of the work that he will continue to do as he has done. Okay, what I decided to do today is to read a number of the poems that I haven't given voice to in kind of this The Curve of Things tour that began the book, dropped in May. I like to say, for those people who are like, oh, I'm never going to publish a book, I'm never going to publish a book. This came out in May, and I also began to collect Medicare in May. So anything is possible at any moment in time. So keep writing, and good things will happen along the way. Again, you can tell I was a teacher for so long. I have all my Post-its, so I'm ready to go. Blowing Kisses. One of those stories told too many times of how my father almost died from a burst heart, and I, only 4, oblivious to the possible grief, waved to my father, looking from the hospital window at his little girl offered up in my mother's arms, blowing kisses in a direction lined with absence. While you stand on the train platform, sad, anticipating, once again, our separation in life's labyrinth, my fingers are guided to my lips by an unseen hand, and I blow gently the kisses, grasping the memory of the body, thinking I hear my father hum a little tune as the tears fall into another temporary loss. Night pools. The anticipation of that first time, first look, lingering, first touch, drawing nearer to the moisture and the sound of my own breath. Paying attention has taken me lifetimes, too long. But you lead me through the woods deliberately, quietly guiding me deeper into the dark, closer to the peepers and tree frogs, vernal pool after vernal pool. I hear you exhale and whisper what might be my name into the net. The spotted salamander struggles, but only momentarily, settles with a firm grip onto your thumb. I open my hands to you, and a shiver ripples through me. I want that first moment over and over again, knowing what I know now, how to touch more lightly, slowly, sighing, holding you, tenderly, gently, in awe. And this is, I don't write a lot of occasional poems. Most of my poems are written about things that I've been thinking about, things that I'm working through, the struggles with myself. And I typically will work on poems for a very long period of time. Some of these poems have been worked on for 25 years. This was a poem written on an occasion that I really didn't touch this poem. And it was a poem that I wrote late evening on 9/11, 2001. How can I say that things are pictures? Our hands reach for different things. How can I write words? How can you model clay? How can either of us reach beyond the things we know to build the towers higher, to return families to the right number, to put the ordinary back into the daily? My fingers pressed to pen, suspended in the space above the empty paper. Your fingers flying in the air, poised in kinetic contemplation near the brownish mound. Our hands tossed against distance and anger and hate and gods, fumble for a connection? How can we touch when the walls are crumbling and the silence says too much? Who are you rescuing from the suffocating mud? Who am I resurrecting from the limits of my imagination? A controlled burn. 1. That tree always knows when a storm lurks. She sways lightly, turns her leaf hands skyward, open, waiting for the rain, ready to adjust to a hardness or a softness. The storm feeds her, makes her brighter from the inside out. Not all storms destroy. Most rearrange the landscape in a way imperceptible to the eye, but the tree knows, adjusts, and becomes steadier. 2. You touched my cheek with a lightness that cracked me open, raw, a strike of lightning that set me on fire and saved me. Unnecessary burning, creating soil for a new planting. I didn't plan this, but I realized that there's a lot of like fire and storms in the poems that I haven't, as I said, read most of these poems in these past few months of reading. Burnt. There are escapes and true things in this recipe for daydreams improvised so long ago. A dash of motorcycle on open road outside Galistio, no helmets, hair blows around our faces in wild gyrations, your arms around my waist in afternoon haze. A pinch of New Orleans in July heat, a dark club underground lit by jazz saxophone, your skin glistens in sweat as we lean close over Bourbon Street. A smidgen of Tiburon, hands held at twilight, a hint of weed from hours ago mixes with the scent of bay air. Salt and pepper to taste in a tent in Arcadia where leaving me was not an option. Your tongue in my mouth, all the words I ever need. And I'm going to end with the last two poems of the collection, which I haven't done. It's funny. Somebody said to me the other day, they're like, weren't you born and raised in Newark? And I'm like, yes. Why do you say that? And they're like, well, there's so much nature in your poems. And I'm like, yeah, there was nature in Newark. Like there was nature there. There's nature there. So I just, as I was reading that last one, I was thinking about that. Blowing glass. Somewhere in this body rests a Marine of who you were to me one last night. Forged in fire and rapid turning, a shape filled with your breath, we were always on the verge of a drop and a shattering, broken to a fineness beyond repair. So when the perfect failure never happened, our encamo remaining while yet imperfect, we embraced the heat of one final moment rather than settle for an annealed life. Blue fields. Let me begin again as pitch pine loved by wind of intense tones, gently stroked by breeze blown sideways in blizzard, our intimacy accompanied by birdsong as I whisper deeply from long needles, cry out from the shortest, a frenzy of sounds carved out of such still silence. Let me begin again, walk blue fields with you. And I, again, one last time, am so grateful to Cav & Press for the beauty of this book in its production and the care and attention that it was given.
Can you read the title poem? You have time.
I have time? You
Yeah.
want me to read the curve of things?
Sure.
Okay, all right. Here's a long one. I read a lot of short ones. Gabe asks, Gabe gets it. So that's how that works. The curve of things. Loving a woman is not linear. It is filled with half moons, semicircles, partial eclipses of the sun, two halves rolling into new geometric configurations, sensuous and infinite. China cups, cereal bowls, a sunflower's center, your lips on my lips, a puppy's head, your lower back, the mountain's outline, the stars at night, a new moon, an old wooden barrel, your hands cupped, filled with water. The yellowed pear, the brass doorknob, the city's skyline in my rearview mirror, the brush in my hand, the sleeping cat, the printed letter G, a slow word, your breasts in profile, my mouth on your neck, the silt-rich molehills, a scared possum, the crystal goblet half filled, a globe, an enjambed line, a lullaby, a baby's pout, the geography of your foot. Halos of cigar smoke, newly permed hair, dabs of frost on windows, the tips of your fingers, a cold beer bottle, a hot cup of coffee, a beagle's howl, the rabbit's root, my breath on your cheek, red juicy tomatoes, the binding of a book, the tension in a bowstring, a kind word, a quick pivot, the physics of baseball, the swelling of a joint, a tattooed bicep, the topography of your inner thigh, a half-bitten peach, an alto sax, a comb through your hair, a backward dive, a pebble, waves before they crash, the final burst of sunset, a mother and child rocking, painting a female nude, a back arching in ecstasy, a cat before pouncing, a movie screen, your soft moans. The dog chasing his tail, an embryo floating, the moon rises full, a nova bursts forth, a belly protrudes, a knapsack explodes, your closed lids flutter, ice freezes into cubes, a signature is written, bristles stroke a canvas, a scar under your chin, Brancusi's birds. A cliff at sunrise, milk on an upper lip, your eyes in moonlight, the silky lampshade, the sculptor's knife, your half-closed lips, a recently emptied seat, cinnamon sweet potatoes, a ballerina's calf, a used bar of soap, chubby checkers the twist, your head in my lap, reading a favorite poem, the chiming of our nose rings, a braid of gold on a finger, a bowl of chocolate pudding, your tongue on my nipple, my hands memorizing your body, loving a woman lies in the curve of things. Thank you. Excited for open mic.
Thank you so much, Kathy. Thank you so much, Rachelle.
Thank you.
One more round of applause for both of them. So, all right, does anyone have any questions for Kathy or Rachelle?
Rachelle, I enjoyed the new poem. It's very strong. I think I'd like to see it print, but I don't know what you think the weakness of it is.
What I think a weakness of it is?
Or a strength too.
Or strength. I don't know if I think there's a weakness as much as it can be strengthened. I think that it can be more ideas involved in it. It possibly could be a longer poem. No, I don't think that there's necessarily a weakness. Maybe there's some things that can be moved around because I've only read it the second time. But
Yeah, I just noticed that you made a comment, this new poem might, have kind of,
Yeah.
yeah.
no, well, if I come out into the world with it, then I'm feeling confident and strong.
Well, you should.
So, yeah, but then you worry, you wonder
Yeah.
if people are going to receive it, and thank you for receiving it.
Thank you.
Michelle? Yeah, Michelle. Yeah. Hi. This is first time here. I'm Hyun. I think you have a very unique and perspective.
Mhm.
And how can you choose the theme in your ordinary life? But how can you choose that one? This is a good item, a good theme. But how can you do that?
I think I just take a theme, something that you see in life,
Just
and
ordinary.
wonder about it. Some things are, like I said, I write a lot about family and aunts and uncles and grandmothers and siblings, cousins, and so I kind of just write through what I'm feeling about it or when I'm wondering about it in the moment. Sometimes it's like a snapshot. Then you write it down and you share it with people who help you decide if it's good to send out into the world. I appreciate that. And so I think that that's pretty much what I do. I just kind of, something that it means something to me that I want to explore.
All right, I have a question then for Kathy. Your poems are so intricate and beautiful and, to quote one of them, always on the verge of a drop and a shattering, filled with lush and sensuous imagery. I was wondering if you could talk about the close attention required to bring such detail into your writing.
I think there's two things in particular as I've thought about this over the years. My dad was a major influence in my life. He only had an 8th grade education. He was an immigrant, but he loved. Again, here we are in Newark, but everything was about what was alive. We really focused on what was alive. We didn't focus on what we didn't have. We focused on the blue jay. We focused on the bark of the tree. There was always this focus on nature and what was alive. And over the years, in particular the last 15-ish years, I have had a pretty steady meditation practice, and so that the paying attention has been very important to me. It was important to me also, I didn't realize how much as a teacher. I think I was a very successful teacher because I loved my students and I paid attention to them. And I think that they appreciated that. And I find that that's what I gravitate to in my work. And I don't like easy things. I like things that are intricate, that require me to have to really think through and to be challenged.
And F. Scott Fitzgerald said, "Nothing any good isn't hard," right? So it's one of those quotes that's just embedded in my head. So I have another question, if anyone else doesn't. This one's for Rachelle, and it comes with a bit of a preamble, so bear with me. In that spectacular long poem you closed with, your speculation and questions take us deep into both personal and cultural history, explorations of societal pain, and reflections on cycles of violence and oppression. The poem and your work as a whole brings revelations such as the difference between being nice and being kind, the need to stop clinging both to sword and shield, and the importance of finding one's own identity, one's own name. So here's the question. And fittingly enough, long poems, also long question. Long poems carry their own challenge in terms of burrowing in to that specificity while keeping, you know, such a keen focus on the overall point of the thing. Can you talk about the process of writing that poem and if you surprised yourself along the way while you were writing it?
I did surprise myself. There were some themes that I wasn't necessarily, the poem was kind of prompted. Someone asked me a question that wasn't a very nice question. And then I realized that in the world there were going to be nice things, not so nice things. And it's kind of like your life. You're living this wonderful life that you want to be up here, and there's always a reason that you are, they say, brought back down to earth. And so for me, the process was more about asking all the questions that I was feeling in that moment. When I was brought into a space that I hadn't asked to be in. So the process meant pretty much, I want to say I got everything that I wanted to say down, and then I was able to add some other things that I felt would expound on the thought, you know, like give you more oppositions, like a piano with no black keys over white. That was good, like flour and sugar and bread, because it's in ordinary things is how we find the answers for the extraordinary. And we are in, I feel, an extraordinary time in this moment in our history. And if each of us focuses on a small thing that we can change and be better at and offer the world, eventually, hopefully sooner than later, I think that type of thinking and philosophy will propel us forward.
You said in ordinary things, what was that? That was a great line.
I said in ordinary things, we are able to propel ourselves forward. So that the answers to ordinary things will help us, I guess, grow, because I forget it.
Yeah.
I should tape it.
To propel us to the extraordinary, right?
It will propel us to the extraordinary. So let's stick with that, Gabe.
Yeah, I've got the replay.
You know, the ordinary things will propel us into the extraordinary.
Yeah.
So yes, I think we'll go with that. We'll quote ourselves.
Wonderful. Any other questions?
Kathy?
Yes.
Yeah. I understood you, during 20 years, you have been published in the local. That is very surprising to me. Yeah. What's the power of the, you like the poetry and you like the publishing, and almost over 120 books you already published. This is really, really amazing.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. I never, you know, from the time I was a child, I wrote poetry. I wasn't a journal kid. And my dad, again, was, he would come home late at night. He was a laborer. He'd come home late at night, and he would know that I was in bed and like reading under the bed covers. And he'd come in and he would sit down and he would recite poetry from memory, or he would sing songs, and so that for me, poetry was like breathing. It was just such a part of my life. And as a teacher, you know, I remember all of my friends when I went to school, they were like, we hate poetry. And so for me, like one of the goals was to, you know, find a way to teach poetry so that kids didn't hate it. And you know, along the way, you know, I always wrote, and eventually it became one of those things where, for me, poetry is very much about community, and about meeting people and sharing with people. If not for poetry, I don't have a Rachelle in my life. And so publishing seemed the next step for me in terms of how do I keep creating community? How do I keep growing my circle? How do we share our humanity with each other in a way that does good? You know, and so, you know, that's one of the things that Rachelle and I talk a great deal about is, you know, this community and how do we find the goodness at difficult times? And for me, that's poetry. And luckily, Kevin Carey thought the same thing, so.
Yeah, we definitely believe in that too, so cheers to that.
Yeah.
You have a question?
I'm also, I have a stupid question for both of you. I have never wrote a poem. So, in terms of process, once you have first original writing, that do you rewrite or with someone's review, and then how do you get the final version of your poem?
That depends on how well it starts out. Sometimes you start out with something and you think is wonderful and great, and in your heart it really is. But it doesn't necessarily translate to the rest of the world, to the listening ear or the page, the way you see it being done. So you will have revisions, and you will have more than one until you get it the way you want to have it. And that includes the title, that do you start with the last line, is it the first line, and you just can't, if you believe in it, you just keep going until you make it sound the way everyone wants to receive it. Some things you put out, you're gonna say, this is how I want it, and I'm okay. Other things, you'll work on it, and you'll know when you feel comfortable to share it.
Yeah, if for me, writing has always been a place for me to play around. And so sometimes I'll be like, well, you know, maybe I'll spend like this. I like to give myself homework. It's the teacher thing. So it'll be like, okay, so for the month of September, I'm gonna try and write 10 sonnets. And so I force myself to have to work within that form, which is very different than, you know, I just think of something and I write it down. I actually find a lot of my poems start when I'm doing other things, so they're in my head. Phones have been great for me because I don't have to carry little notebooks around with me anymore. I used to always have a little notebook and I would write things down, like I'd be walking the dog and I'd write this down. I now, my job now is I take care of 2 little boys, so when we're, you know, out playing, I'll write some things down. I also have given myself assignments when I first retired, and I was like, okay, so I want to do this full time, but how do I start? I'm lucky to have a couple of people in my life who are top-notch, like internationally renowned glass artists and glass blowers. And in a conversation I had with a dear friend of mine, Alexander Rosenberg, you know, he goes, this is a daily practice for me. Like, I blow glass every single day, even if I can only blow glass for a half hour, which doesn't mean a whole lot. You're not getting a whole lot done. And so what I decided that first year was to write short form. And so I spent a lot of time writing haiku and tanka. I created a whole little short form of my own called matins that I would write first thing in the morning after I came in from a walk. So it's really like play for me in a lot of ways. But I'm a big reviser. I often go back, but I'll let things sit for years before I go back and look at them.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any final questions?
Following question. Thinking about sometimes if you write a love letter at night and in the morning, oh my God. Sometimes do you feel like that?
I think when you're embarrassed is when you did your best work. Because it's coming from your heart. A lot of times people think poetry is only autobiographical and never fiction. So that's why, because it's something that you went to bed on and you slept on it and you woke up and you felt embarrassed and then you reread it and you saw something on there that was your heart. So I say that's the one you keep working on.
Final little quick lightning question, and this one I didn't come up with. It's from a previous reading, but you know what? You see something good, you say it. The question is, I'd love to hear what each poet would write about right now, at this time, in this room. Like if time froze and you had, you know, whatever you wanted to do to capture this moment, what poem would you write? What would you be focused on?
Well, for me, I have this image right now, which came from your question, of all of us just getting really excited. As adults, we don't think about letting ourselves play. And this idea of whether it's our phones or paper or whatever, let's just kind of scatter about and start writing poems, and then walk over to someone else and share that poem with them. And you know, what a beautiful world that would be if we could freeze time and say, and again, playing games, right? Freeze. Think of something that you love. Think of something beautiful. Think of something nice to say to a stranger, and then go and you find someone and you do that. So that's where I might be writing that poem this afternoon. But just that idea of what play can do for us as adults, and a way to share that we don't often give ourselves, and we might be all better off for that. So it'll probably be a political poem too.
Yes. Always political.
Yeah, yeah.
And, I think for me, it's along the same lines. We have a room full of people who have questions. That means you're going to go home or leave this space. You've been changed by this reading. We hope for the good. and you will take your ordinary piece that you've learned here or experienced here, and you'll move out into the world with it. So then for me, it's probably a motion poem about how we take in information, how we connect with each other, and what is the outcome of that.
Everybody can.
That everybody can.
Yeah.
Great sentiment to end on. Thank you so much.
Ode to Walt Whitman, The Housing Projects. 13 stories pushed through cracks, capped with water tanks and smokestacks, insulated from the big bad world, my dreams and imagination swirled. White concrete walls were a blank slate, held my name up in bright red paint, enough flights of stairs to fly down, steps taken 2 by 2 until on the ground. Summer you offered the most fun, long days, long kisses from the sun, yellow outlines for games with cans, part of a day with no set plans. Maple trees lined our racetrack, the tar if you fell showed no slack, jump rope slaps from telephone wire, no amount of Nemerox could tire. Doting on us kids to show your care, the ice cream truck's weight you'd bear. The halls are now dank and dark, every kind of crime left its mark. Silver chain links replaced with black bars. Scaffolding began to block the stars. As brick and mortar swell with fears, panes and panes of glass shed tears. Never daunted by all these things, you still know the heart that sings. Musty jacket, tattered and worn, added tension and blowing your horn. Fiercely you continue standing guard over little girls in cowboy boots and leotards.
And Kathy, it was
Rachelle's just reading all my favorites.
Well, that's what you have to do.
That's what you have to do. I got so excited I grabbed my phone. I don't know what I was doing there. All right.
Taking a selfie.
I'm just taking a selfie. David, you inspired me to read. I have an elegy in here, so I'm going to read that. Morning Flowers, for JMR 1971 to 2020. 1. Marie wrote about what the living do. I answer by holding my place in books that might save me. Poems of the geographies of lives I've lived, buried in the geology of my body. Like the bookmark Simon cherished, like Callis when he was dying, the one he got at Giovanni's room before any of us knew about the fever and dying so many would do. 2. Now, today, word you died, Cara, always almost loving me, holding fast, laughing hard, a notion of what letting go might yield. The volta in our poem, all style and rhythm, defying form, once familiar land. This death falls hard in balsam of ink on skin, the triple Morrigan we shared, eruption from the volcano, smoldering for years from deadly yearning. 3, yellow ray flowers, corolla and ovaries, dark center of discs, filaries, a tender hand, feels of eternal lightness. 4, at the end, I would read the book of tea like you tended your garden, squash, corn, beans, in the middle of night, headlamp on, to stop the torrent of nightmare. I read pages I tagged years before, Okakura reminding us a butterfly is a flower with wings. Thank you.